morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Endurance Chat. I am Max Delavari, and I am joined once again by the ineffable Austin Zetzman. Hello, Austin, how are you on this wonderful Floridian evening?
That's great. I'm assuming it's sometime in the morning over there in Upside Down World, right?
Yes, you are literally 1 minute away from it not being morning. So, well done.
I'm somewhat accurate.
Somewhat.
Good to hear your voice.
Oh, it's great to hear your voice. The end of the year has been so difficult in getting these planned. You may have noticed that we've done like 2 of these since Le Mans. It's been a mess. But here we are. We're here at the end of 2020, the end of this crazy, unprecedented year. And we made it. We crawled over the line.
No, we didn't cross yet. We've got one final stint, and we saved the brand new fresh set of sticker tires. Right,
we have sticker tires for this shit.
Yeah, man. We have been running a shit show for a while for these
for 5 years. We've been running a shit show for 5 years.
So look, we have absolutely sustained some pretty awful stints on some old used tires. So we've got a fresh set here for the last set of 2020. Sure we're not going to crash.
Incredible.
It could still derail, man.
I mean,
we are not out of this yet at all.
It's Endurance Chat. Like, of course we're going to derail. Derailing is kind of like our product at the moment. Like, honestly.
Us even declaring 2020 being over is us derailing by even assuming 2020 isn't going to come and do something stupid in the last handful of days here.
Anyway. Right. Anyway, so sports cars, right? Those things that go around the track real quick and zoom, the boom.
Where we last left you all off with was preparing for Bahrain.
Oh yes, that was so long ago. Let's talk about that Bahrain race because it was the WEC finale. It was the finale of the longest season in WEC history in terms of days. It was
motorsport history.
In motorsport history, in fact.
I'll just say it. I'll say it. I haven't even looked it up, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
I mean, how many seasons go longer than 18 months?
Calendar seasons?
I mean, no. Shut up. So, yeah, the WC finale. What were your thoughts on the 8 Hours of Bahrain, the end of Season 8?
Because this is being recorded so late, we were able to watch both rounds when Formula 1 went, and so obviously everyone will agree with me when I say that they should just do the outer loop for everything and make it into like the American in me here, Bristol or Martinsville of WC, or just a Norris ring or something. It's a grade 1 track that does lap times in essentially a minute, probably a minute and 2 seconds for Toyota if they were to run LMP1H there. I think that would be a brilliant race if they would have done that. That's the conclusion that I drew from watching the 8 Hours of Bahrain. That would have been such a better show if it was on the outer loop.
But the best part of the Bahrain track is the infield, and I mean, yeah, you're right. The show for the WEC 8 Hours was kind of lame. I think that's more to do with the fact that there was like the smallest entry list in WEC history, which is more of a contributing factor.
that would have totally helped out, like spread everybody out. Well, it wouldn't have spread everybody out just because the track is so short.
Yeah,
so you would have had tons of overtaking, potential for accidents, which is everybody's forte apparently, and then lots of strategy, potential safety cars. I think that would have been great.
Just quickly, we have Alex 21 in the chat saying the infield is the worst part, and that is an absolutely wrong opinion, and you should feel ashamed of yourself.
I will tend to agree more with him than you.
What? No, it's
just not good
the
for
run back
overtaking.
down the hill is like one of the best sequences in racing because you can set up so many passes in that middle section. You guys are all just what?
You mean down? You mean the off camber like double apex like chicane or not chicane like hairpin that you can lock up and run wide, and that's what caused the British driver to lose the championship.
Yeah, because you can make the move there because the racing line swings wide. So if you tug the inside line, you can get the upper ground. But if you mess it up, you're going wide. You're going off into the sand. You're going off in the desert. That's why it's
like a trickster corner, and I don't appreciate those corners. I don't respect those corners.
Well,
I respect Radeon and Eau Rouge, that kind of stuff where you like or like Mo Sport Turn 2 where you like there's commitment behind what you're doing in
I
that
mean, yeah,
corner
but you
for
can't
me
make
to
a
respect
pass through
it.
turn 2, can you?
Yeah, you could. Oh, yeah, you could.
Anyway, back to Bahrain. So the overall battle, Toyota number 7 versus Toyota number 8. The number 7
Yes.
got away in
Thrilling, compelling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about P2 instead.
Yep.
That went down to the wire. There was a few really interesting moments in the P2 race that really helped carry the race through. It was Joda Sport versus JCDC, and that went absolutely to the final lap. I think it was 1 or 2 seconds at the line. Pretty good.
Very good racing. I mean, it's kind of what when we would probably do previews of all of the rounds, we would say, yeah, this is potentially going to happen in this race. And honestly, for different reasons, this kind of racing that we saw at Bahrain could have easily happened in any of the other rounds just because of how close the LMP2 field is. But I find it interesting too, even that I guess we had such close competition, and it just felt like throughout the entire race when you still have like the ebb and flow of different driver ratings and skill set that just kind of still seem to be at par with each other throughout the entire race in a lot of the LMP2 field. And then just with the United Autosport kind of having a lot of shells to shoot at its feet off with, kind of really brought a lot of the what if factor to the top step of that class podium. So
yeah, and United, for the first time in 2020, the only time in 2020, in fact, did not win the race. And they, as you said, had a lot of goes at shooting themselves in the foot. They picked up a penalty for, I think, some sort of driving infringement. They picked up a penalty because Albuquerque rear-ended someone heading into the pit lane, which was hilarious. And I think the most hilarious part of that was whoever he rear-ended. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It was the Jota car. I think it was Felix da Costa. One of them basically saying, I think he's still back in IMSA because that's a reference to what happened at Petit Le Mans, where was it Montoya just plowed into the back of another car? Or was it, someone plowing into the back?
No, the best part was him arguing that it should be a racing incident. It's like, what are you talking about, man? That's not a racing incident. You ran into the back of him, like heading in the pit lane. He was going like the speed limit, and you hit the guy going in the speed limit. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of things wrong with that statement that I don't think I need to even say to him. So like that, I thought was the most hilarious part of that entire deal. But,
it was quite hilarious. But their only loss of 2020, that is
astonishing.
Yeah, right. For a spec class with amateur drivers to do that, it absolutely shows you the quality of their team, their personnel, their engineering, and of course, their fake silvers in Phil Hansen and Will Owen, but and Job van Uytert for that matter as well. But they finished 4th. They didn't even finish on the podium. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, that's and again, I mean, it's just a kind of a testament to how close the class is really, and just how, I mean, even though United Autosports have been dominant, how quickly you can kind of lose touch with the front of the pack if you make a mistake like that, or if you have a couple mistakes like that, and that just ended up being too big of a mistake too late in the race for them.
Yep. Something I also wanted to pull out that P2 battle. We talked about the battle for the end. That was incredibly good. But they've been really the protagonists this season, Jota, JDDC, and United. I really want to give a big shout out to Racing Team Netherlands, who took home, they took home 3rd place, which is pretty impressive. They did get a little bit of a free kick with the safety car helping bring them back into the fold after Fritz had finished his drive time. But 3rd place for Racing Team Netherlands, that's awesome.
Yeah, and well deserved. I mean, I pulled for them a lot just from the just kind of from the aspect that they're not like a big dog in LMP2, which is kind of weird to say, but yeah, there's definitely some powerhouses in LMP2, and really, I mean, they have elevated themselves up pretty decently over the last couple of years, and just good to see them come out with a podium for the super season finale.
Yeah, and interesting as well, they were the top placed Michelin team. So we've been talking about the battle in P2, the tyre battle between the Goodyears and the Michelin. Goodyear absolutely smashed it. So very well done for them. What else really was interesting and intriguing about that WEC race?
Well, GT Pro was sort of meh.
It was very
wasn't. There wasn't a. I was really selling that. I mean, cheers, round of applause to AMR.
Yeah, the most exciting part of the GTE Pro race was AMR having to do a brake change.
Yes, like brake change, and everybody getting really excited about that because that was literally the most exciting thing about that. GTM would probably be it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
the GTM was a bit topsy-turvy because, again, you have the whole driver time mess.
Yeah.
But even still, like, you want to know who won GTM? It was the same people who won every other GTM race. It was Team Project 1, AF Corsa, and Empty Pro. Actually, no, that's a lie. We were expecting AMR to be in the mix, but they were well down. I'm trying to remember why the Aston Martins had such a shocking race. They were both over a lap behind.
Yeah, I was writing a couple notes for this, and at least on some form of scratch paper when the interviews were happening, and I do not recall. They did interview a couple of them, like TF Sport, but I didn't get specifically like what the issue was. So,
apparently, according to Kiwi Chris in our chat, PDL may have had an oof, so not sure why. But even still, the Team Project 1, the Mentos car, also had an oof, which shredded the Pro Ferrari's tires. So, yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. GTM kind of got, and this is a criticism of the WEC broadcasting on the whole, but GTM tends to get lost in the ether because you have differing driver ratings, driver time requirements, very different strategies. And when you have a race which was 8 hours, which very comfortably made the 52-minute highlights a little bit boring, you really should be focusing on the complexities of a class such as GTM, or for the ELMS, LMP3, because LMP3 is the same story. No one knows what's going on in LMP3 unless you're literally there with a lap chart and a timer to time the pit stops. So yeah, it's a bit. They missed an opportunity to really show the complexities and the real product of GTM. In my opinion,
show that though. Hard to show. It's hard to show that. I think the best thing that they could do is come up with some graphic, something, just something that either estimates or charts, gives it a little bit more of like a okay, this then that kind of deal. Because I think if you're trying to highlight that directly, like having the announcers constantly keep you updated with explaining kind of like the give and take with some of this, especially with the time pit stops, like that's going to be difficult to do. I think just coming up with some graphics and stuff. And even if it's just manually inputting some of this, just so that you're giving some of the viewers a heads up of like what they're looking at, or just familiarizing themselves with a format that is a little bit more palatable than just them explaining it, would go a whole lot more way.
Yeah, like imagine
you have to do that now.
Yeah, imagine if you had a graphic that came up next to the AM classes, so like the P2 and the GTEM cars, which showed the driver rating of the driver in the car. Like, imagine if, they got those 4 quadrants, right? Imagine if one of those quadrants was the driver rating. So you have the blue circle with a gold corner, or a silver corner, or a bronze corner. And then maybe, simple stuff like that just kind of adds a little extra texture. So you don't have to keep explaining those things. Instead, you get to see them visually. Because, the drive time, especially...
system. I mean, it's a little bit messed up system. I get it, but I mean, I think something a little bit more where you're embracing that aspect of it, and you're trying to bring more definition to this, like just to give, and us Grizzlies seasoned veteran fans already know kind of a lot of this stuff, this basic stuff already, but it's just to kind of get other people a little bit up to speed or aware of what this is, or going like, okay, what does that mean? Asking those questions, which really will drive hopefully more of the discussion. If that is a crappy way of doing it, let's fix it, or make it a little bit better. So I wish that they did something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And it would just be very small things, what they call in sports those 1%ers that really just bring the broadcast more to life. I do still quite like the 8 Hours of Bahrain as a race. I think starting in the daylight and going into darkness, that transition period with the sunset, oh my god. And yeah, and the gratuitous slow-mos through golden hour. Oh my god. Oh. That's...
But he's having an accident once again.
I'm constantly having an accident, mate.
And it would be so much better with the outer loop.
Shut up. Shut up. Go.
Can you imagine those S's and how rhythmic for about like a good 20 seconds that lap is for the F1 cars, and how you have to time it perfectly with the Toyotas, especially when you're going with that much speed. It'd be so great. So great.
It would be different.
Fantastic. Print it.
I'd maybe like to see a test there one day. You know what they should do? You know what they should do, Cookie? They should do the endurance loop at Bahrain. That would be great. No, don't. The endurance loop is a trash circuit. Yeah, thank you. Immediately in the chat, we've got a string of eels.
That would be amazing to see. Well, I mean, you could essentially have Toyotas that would have this lap times that would fluctuate between 5 to 6 seconds slower just from that, because they would be stuck behind a GT car for 4 or 5 turns, because you wouldn't be able to do anything.
That's why I am not entirely sold on the outer loop as a WEC venue, because there is one corner that you could really get stuck behind a GT car and it would ruin your day, and that's that fast chicane on the back end. I think
Road Atlanta would like some words.
Road Atlanta is great though.
Hold on. I apologize. I was reading the other book. Let me pull out the right book here. And okay, there we go. Yeah, you're right. Road Atlanta is great.
Road Atlanta is great.
And Bahrain's twisty bits are not great.
Bahrain's twisty bits are no. What I'm saying is
You say.
There's one corner you can get held up at if you do the outer loop at Bahrain. If you do the infield, which is the GP circuit, there is so many other variables that you've got to think about. Road Atlanta, you have the entire first section. You get stuck behind a GT car, you're screwed. The hairpin at the end of the far end of the circuit, or the double right-hander. If you get stuck behind a GT car there, it's very difficult to overtake on that second right-hander. It looks a lot easier than it actually is because it's off camber and it's going away. And then, of course, the chicane and the run down the final corner. Just because there's a lot of straight line doesn't make it easier to overtake all the time. Whereas at Bahrain, it does, because there are 4 90-degree corners and a chicane. It's
perfect opportunity.
Almost trivial.
It's amazing, yeah. And you have to go fast. It's literally just
gotta go fast.
In the aspect of how quickly you can fall behind and be half a lap behind and stuff. There is an urgency to how quickly that lap time makes you push and have to pass cars in weird spots and keep up with everybody else.
Yeah,
so
fine.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like I can make a good argument for this, dude.
Okay. Well, when Creventic redesigns their calendar and goes to Bahrain, we'll suggest the outer loop for him.
We should. I'll if I can find a flight over there, I'll hold a banner that says "Do the outer loop."
Yeah, fair.
Dirty dogs.
WEC season on the whole, what are your thoughts? The truncated super season.
It was everything we thought it was going to be.
Really?
And less.
Yeah. Remember, this season was meant to end at Le Mans in June. It was we were already meant to be 3 races deep into the LMH era at this point. And we, insofar, had the longest break between races with no race for the WEC between February and August.
Yes. Those are facts.
Those are facts. How do those facts make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it is, it was an experiment that kind of went bad because of extenuating circumstances, and you can kind of say that with a whole lot of the LMP1H era to end it. But I think, again, they did, I guess, the best that they could with what they had, and I mean, I'm grateful that it wasn't just more than, one race that Toyota just had themselves to play with, and that the LMP2 battle did go that far. So
yeah, true. Keep in mind, at Bahrain, LMP2 got an overall podium. I mean, that's because there was only 2 cars in the top class, but still, like, how many times can you say that LMP2 has an overall podium?
Do you count that though? That's like asterisk territory. You can't count that.
Hey, I mean, Rebellion have 3 LMP1 privateer titles. Do you count them? Do you
Yeah.
not count them?
Yeah, it does feel weird, and I'll say this just because from an aspect that really in the championship is in a very, very, very weak spot right now, and but
Right now.
right, and that's the thing is that this feels a whole lot like ALMS folding, but then doing this whole merging stuff outside of the aspect that the other side actually is the ownership group, and you kind of sold your stuff to them. So it's like anyway, but it did feel a little bit like that with if you were an ALMS fan back in like 2012, 2013 when they were on like kind of their death throes, and this merger kind of came along and was just kind of like okay, there's stuff to look forward to. This wasn't great, but there's, we have a crazy interesting future, and I feel like we're at the same point here.
Absolutely. We'll talk a bit about that later on because there has been news, my friends. There has been news. I think Kiwi Chris in our live chat has summed it up pretty well. This season, we got through it. And that's all you really need to say. We've gotten through the end of LMP1. We've gotten through a coronavirus pandemic, worldwide pandemic. And we've gotten through the leanest entry lists that the WC has ever seen. So we've gotten through and we can reset a fresh and a new next year for the WEC. Staying in the same sort of boundary, that weekend was also the IMSA finale. Did you go to the IMSA finale at Sebring? 12 hours of Sebring? How was it?
I did. It was great.
Cool.
Yeah.
I actively decided to not watch the race, so you are going to have to help me out a little bit here. What happened in the IMSA 12 hours of Sebring?
Oh, wow. Put me right on the spot here for a quick recap of something that happened a mere month ago.
Yeah.
With my wonderful memory is really bold of you, sir. So I just want to just throw that out there first.
Just quickly before you get into it, we've had 3 people in the chat. One person say who cares. The other person said I forgot there was a 12 hours of Sebring.
Ouch. Fair, well, so I really liked it from an aspect that the team that won, being my dudes from the land of the rising sun. I believe.
Mazda?
Right?
Acura?
I'm trying. I'm trying very desperately. Very desperately.
Nissan?
Yeah.
Nissan?
No.
Lexus?
No, it was a good race. It was definitely lacking on entries. So just from the aspect of like what you normally see from a normal 12 hours of Sebring, it was all just really strange. So you had a lack of entries like on the track and also in the infield.
Yep.
So it was definitely very lean. There was not a lot of people there. And realistically, everybody was keeping to themselves and doing what they could to not be awful. And the people that were like stalwarts of there in the infield, I think all were very recognizable of that. And so that was pretty good. I probably wouldn't do it again if it was happening right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully with March coming up and whatnot, and how hopefully with some vaccines being distributed, it'll be a little bit easier to justify going out there to do it. But I know Daytona is a different story in a month from now. But yeah, it was that was definitely on everybody's mind, I think, there. But the on-track action was pretty good. Just obviously, like, there's just something to be said to have that many cars on the track. So I think that did definitely withdrew a little bit of intensity with it. There was some interesting battles to be had, but a lot of it too was on strategy. But it was good. I think from like just a heartfelt aspect of it, like I liked seeing everybody who won. So like the GTD winner with it being Wright Motorsports, so with Patrick Long.
Oh, nice.
Getting the win there. And then the Porsche doing a 1-2 on their final farewell, pretty much of their GT run as a factory team. That was pretty cool. So, and then obviously like with Mazda winning, and I would say this is their biggest win that they've had yet. Just from the aspect of how demanding and tough the track is. Sure, it's not 24 hours, but I consider this and Daytona to be pretty much if you win one of these, like, that pretty much beats anything else that you've won in the calendar. You know, and I know that they've won Watkins Glen, except Le Mans, obviously. But yeah, I think for them that was just a big win, and it was just good to see like a lot of Mazda fans getting kind of, because that's how I would feel, man. I mean, like just winning Sebring or Daytona are obviously Petit 2 and Watkins Glen are big, but those two in particular I think are huge, just with the story, the history behind them. So, but I had a great time, and yeah, nice. It was definitely an extraordinary set of circumstances.
Yeah,
I'll say
well, that. This is a very interesting sort of thing for me, because I've been to 3 motorsport events this year, and all of them were pre-COVID. You, on the other hand, have been to, I think it was now 5 motorsport events. Is that right, this year? Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, this is a completely different attitude in terms of countries and everything, but, like, I'm a little jealous that you've had the opportunity to go to these motorsport events. Like, it just straight up has not been an option over here.
Yeah, it's that has been a weird blessing, and I mean, and I'll be honest, right? Like, you know, it's I'm very opinionated on a certain aspect of this, so I have way too many, you know, hand sanitizers and all kinds of stuff and masks and whatnot, and you know, and I'm one to definitely be trying to point out to myself and people around me too as well, just to make sure we're doing everything if there's something egregious and whatnot. So, but at the same time too, it is good to be able to go to these things, at least just from the availability of it, as well just for me as a fan to be able to support them, to show them that like I'm willing to at least you know, take just a slight risk on myself, but taking the right precautions that I think are going to put me in a safe spot to still enjoy the entertainment that you're putting on. And I think that I wanted to make sure that I was doing a little bit of that just from a fan aspect, because I feel like it's this year is definitely going to be crazy when you're looking back on it. So
let's look back
different events too.
Yeah, so. let's look back on 2020, the unprecedented year that is 2020. I think that's been easily the word of the year everywhere around the world. Let's get the shit stuff out of the way first. What has been your disappointments of 2020? Where do you start, really, in terms of sports cars? Because it's been a difficult atmosphere to watch sports car racing throughout this year. So yeah, where do we start? Where do we start with the disappointments of 2020?
Well, there's still the rollovers of the other years too. So, you know, like you know, driver ratings that are terrible.
Yeah, true.
And then the time pit stops and all that stuff with the SRO crap for Spa is terrible. You know, even with the Nürburgring a little bit too with that. So I'll just, again, those are just, you know, legacy stuff. Got to throw them in there, mention them. Yeah, I mean, the underwhelming aspect of the WC and IMSA car counts, although, again, it's part of a pandemic aspect with both of them. But at the same time, too, there's still that aspect that some of them are weaning down, you know, for reasons kind of unknown when others are trying to bounce back up and take over. So it feels like a transition year. It doesn't feel like everybody's kind of giving it their all. Yeah. In a weird way.
It was a weird transition year on top of a global pandemic. Like,
I'd say for IMSA and WC exclusively, because I feel like the GT3 SRO kind of deals, those felt still as good as you could kind of get them to be. But it definitely felt like in WC and IMSA that this was just it was an off year for both of those.
It was just incredibly underwhelming. Like, I'll be entirely honest, I struggled to watch sports car racing this year. It felt like a chore at times, and I don't like my free time feeling like a chore. For IMSA, like, for some reason, I just couldn't get IMSA TV to work the entire year. The only way I was able to actually watch any IMSA events was either the YouTube replays weeks later, or someone sharing me the direct VLC link. I just couldn't get it to work. I tried different browsers, I turned off my ad blockers, blah, 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 blah. Just couldn't get it to work. And at some point, I was just like, you know, why am I even trying? I'm not really enjoying watching IMSA anyway. And then the WEC, I didn't watch Bahrain live. I still haven't watched COTA. The only race that I really enjoyed for the WEC this year was Le Mans, and of course it was Le Mans. It's always Le Mans. And then on the other hand as well, even the ELMS and the SRO, like while they were as strong and as normal as they ever have been, I didn't get that same like wow factor from them. Like last year, the ELMS was the best series of the entire year, but I just didn't. It didn't have that same sort of feeling again. I don't know. I just found it difficult.
Walked over a lot of that stuff. I think a lot of the X factors were kind of eliminated this year by United Autosport just actually showing up and being United Autosport this year and walking away with everything. So I feel like the championship aspect plays a lot into some of how some of these drivers race and how their attitudes work, and just with United just kind of clinically cleaning up everything, it removed a lot of that aspect. It almost just became the chase, the
default,
and the chasers.
And we have someone in the chat, Johan, saying ELMS was boring because of United. So yeah, exactly. So it kind of made things difficult, made things a lot more, a lot less interesting to watch, a lot less enjoyable. For me personally, it was, and on top of that, someone's asking how much of that is, the feeling of the world and how things were going worldwide versus the racing atmosphere on track. And, that's certainly a good question. But on the other hand, like I've found much more enjoyment watching Premier League soccer and cricket and stuff like that in contrary. So it's been hard to be a sports car fan. And like on top of that as well, we've had, it was a barrage of bad news. We had Rebellion announced the end of their program and then announced that they're not going to do the race after Le Mans. We've had Ginetta not run a race lap all year. Remember that car, guys? The one that we had our sticker on? It didn't run a race lap all year. There's been the closing of the Porsche program in the States, Porsche and Corvette not coming over to Europe for Le Mans. There was just a barrage of bad news, and it made it very difficult to get excited about sports cars, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you're not wrong at all. Those are all just they're all tough pills to swallow. You kind of all had to bear with them while dealing with everything else that was going on in the world, and then once it's coming back up, it's all jumbled and certain rounds aren't there. We're substituting some of these races for others, and so you don't get that same kind of feeling because we're running sometimes some of the same tracks twice.
Yeah.
So even for IMSA, I should say, and so there's definitely kind of just a dilution of the championship a little bit this year with them, which is just kind of a bummer to, But hey, again, it's just the best of, I feel like, what they could do at the time, and this is, at least for both of them, for everybody's sake, there appears to be brighter skies ahead at this point.
Yeah, ahead. Maybe not in the immediate future with things like the Bathurst 12-hour being cancelled because Australia has very, very stringent international entry precautions at the moment, and no GT cars no GT competitors in Australia to prop up the event by itself. So we've still got a little bit ways to go yet. But I think Johan, once again in the chat, summing it up, Sad Gazoo has become far and away the most used emote on this server for this year. I think that's the most appropriate. We all feel like Toyota at the end of the 2016 Le Mans.
That was such a sad Gazoo.
Had to squeeze it in. Always had to squeeze it in. What are your thoughts on the whole? How have you been finding watching racing this year?
It's been a good relief. Again, I'll say that I've been, I've wanted to go to these races in person just from a wanting to pay respect fan wise and show my support, but also just kind of, it is nice. I mean, just from a personal enjoyment aspect, just to kind of like watch and listen to some race cars in person through all this. So, and I feel like I'm, the same about with everybody else, that they have a specific thing that, just kind of relaxes them and kind of gets them, kind of maybe even resets them or anything like that. And I felt like some of the times I was at those racetracks, it had helped me a lot more this year than it has in other times, just to kind of listen and just let the ambiance of the racetrack kind of be a little bit of a thing, especially at the 12 hours. That was really good. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like that being at the racetrack this year was really, really helpful for me, just to kind of recharge me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it just from that aspect. But yeah, I mean, I felt like it was a grind. I mean, if I could describe it, it was been an unholy grind for, since July essentially, and rolling almost all the way through November. And I didn't know how much I would actually appreciate sometimes the breaks that you get in between, the middle of the season, where you're just kind of like, man, I wish there was some racing right now, but like, holy crap, man! At the end,
so much racing.
I was really okay with not watching some rounds, and I still ended up watching everything, which I still don't know how I did. So I'm going to enjoy this slight time off, as then everybody resets for what appears to be a regular season, which might all be TBD'd.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I think everything is still TBD'd at the moment. And that's an incredible point you bring up there. I think when they first started racing coming back, I think when it was the Creventic 12 hours of Algarve or 24 hours of Algarve, and we just had something to watch, the collective exhale, the just breath of fresh air, it was just so refreshing. So I think it kind of goes to show how much, like, we've not that we rely on these things to sort of act as an escape, but it was just it was so nice to just have racing back again, and that was one of the good moments of 2020. I do want to backtrack just a little bit and talk about Ginetta, because we have been avoiding doing this all year, but I think there has to be a bit of a post-mortem on the Ginetta G60 program, because boy howdy did things go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much most of the we can pretty much say that for all the privateers, except for Rebellion.
Well, I mean, okay, so
they seem to be the only competent one that actually stood, which is ridiculous. I mean, basically, it was Rebellion and Toyota to stand alone, being the only competent people at the dinner table, while everybody decided to like pee themselves and stab themselves with a dinner fork.
Well,
like,
not exactly. I mean, S&P were competent. They, won.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and then the baby took their food and threw it away and then ran away. Like, yeah, you're right. So
I mean, they said that they achieved the maximum that they could with that car, and then a week after that, the success ballast system was implemented, and so you have to expect that they knew about that being implemented and then just decided not to anyway. But anyway,
no way, really? You think that?
I don't know. There is no way that the ACO wouldn't have said, if you stick around for another week, we are implementing this brand new success ballast. There is no way they were in the dark about that. You can't leave someone in the dark about that after they announce the cessation of a program.
Yeah, but again, like my point is that you're citing competence for reasons why that they didn't do this, and I'm citing that it's more likely that there was incompetence involved with this than anything else.
Yeah, so, fair.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, enough of S&P. Ginetta, right? So, I think for those who may have come in the last season or so of WEC, we should talk a bit more about the whole program, because really, it's not just this year or this season that things have been going wrong. It's been a process of bad luck and bad preparation, which kind of, again, led to one of the LMP1 teams not running a lap all year. Like, is it ridiculous to think that? Like, I mean, one of the people for the nominations for the Best of 2020 awards on the subreddit nominated our logo, the r/WEC logo being on the Ginetta as the best moment of 2020. Like, it didn't even run a lap. That was last year. That was 18 months ago that all happened. It didn't even run a lap. So we gotta. It's a long and dire process, but let's get into it. Let's talk you through what we think happened with Ginetta, because there's a lot. So for those who don't know, Ginetta almost got a P2 tender. So you know how there's 4 P2 manufacturers? Ginetta was almost one of them. They got rejected at the last minute, and that was after they basically saved the LMP3 class as well when the LMP3 class was first implemented.
That was a slap in the face.
That was. Sure. And I can certainly see Ginetta and Lawrence Tomlinson being very, very mad about that, because, they basically came to the rescue of a class that was going to, not get off the ground, and then in return, they got a slap in the face. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the consensus at the time was that, I mean, if you're gonna give it to Riley, then we better actually see them make chassis and do something with it, because at the time it was kind of like, okay, well, they came off of the SRT Dodge Viper program, and in terms of running, managing, and kind of even building some of those cars, so you knew at least that they had some OEM technical prowess with it. So you kind of thought, all right, well, if they take that kind of stuff, Riley Technologies, and he was still racing, well, then hopefully this will go somewhere, and it, holy God, didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It became worse when Riley didn't do it, when it became almost essentially a stillborn, and Ginetta was still a decent, still upstarting company that was still trying to do stuff inside the ACO framework, and just didn't get any of it.
And so, like, they took this P2 project and they're like, well, how about we just make it into a P1? And, like, that was awesome. They announced that at the beginning of 2017. So this was just after Audi had pulled out, that they were like, okay, we're going to jump into LMP1. That's awesome. That showed a great amount of faith in the class and in the category. And it got people very excited, because here we have this this upstart British brand coming in to race in the WEC, and that was really cool. And the chassis from all reports was incredible. And then we get to the engine. So Mechachrome, a engine supplier for Formula 2, had never done an endurance racing engine, and they promised a lot. They promised that they'd build an engine, a turbocharged V6, and it would be ready, and it would be on the mark. And you got to think, when your alternatives are a Gibson V8, which at the time did not fit into the rules because I think it was too thirsty for the category. An AER, which is proven to blow up, a Judd V10 that is just, also proven to blow up, and then a bespoke manufacturing program for a brand new engine supplier that has proven results in other series. Like, that's a pretty big boon for Ginetta to jump in on that. But unfortunately, come the prologue, it was very obviously down on power, and the prologue results show that they were, if you believe the hullabaloo about the chassis, they were still the slowest cars on track, including the bicollars. So that's not really a great start to the Ginetta lifestyle, or the Ginetta life cycle.
It was a lifestyle. It ended up being that poor performance aspect of it, but. Yeah, I think the weird part is, we were here talking about it when it was kind of going through all this stuff. So I remember having the conversations about it, and it was like, look, they don't have the experience with the endurance factor, but the engines, they have to manufacture so many, that you would assume their quality control is pretty high, so they would have potential to make reliability out of some of their engine blocks, and just from what they're doing at their own shop. So that they would be more up for the challenge than maybe AER, who were proven to not know what they were doing. So I feel like maybe taking the risky, unproven approach it wasn't that crazy, I think, for Jenna at the time, but just every little thing that kind of could have tilted their way just ended up not tilting their way, and they did not help themselves when it didn't tilt their way, and it just kept snowballing on them. And that's really the unfortunate part, because I still was pulling for them even when they, had the manner issues, which we'll talk about. So, even after that they were still trying to find some actual hookups to get some of these things to go out on the track was still very cool to see, and I was definitely pulling for them. But just issue after issue after issue, and you could say mistake or whatnot, but. Yeah.
Well, they talked a lot. They talked a huge game in the lead up to the prologue about having possibly 10 two-car customers, ahead of the first race of the season. So they basically announced customers that I think amounted to nothing more than expressions of interest in the end, and none of them ended up being takers except for Manor. And we all remember how that went with the cars getting sent to Spa-Francorchamps and doing an installation lap in each of the practice sessions, and then never being seen again because the money hadn't come through from Manor. So it even going back before then, when one of our power users at the time, Alex Sinclair, went to the show at the Geneva Auto Show where that car was revealed, and commented that, you know, this doesn't look like it's been, done properly. It looks like it's been rushed. It looks like they put these stickers on as the doors have been opened. It kind of set alarm bells off in my head. I'm not sure if it set them off in your head, but as history will show, it really... Well, I mean, when Manor ran out of money and went under, the cars were pulled from the season, and like that was it for the 2018-2019 season. And it was over in a flash. Rest in peace, the Blue Boy.
And you when you get that far behind the eight ball so much in sports car racing, it's just so hard to climb back from it. And, you know, what hurts is just how far that they got with the car and everything else. And they almost needed that, like, last 5 to 10% to get them to, like, the finish line, which would just be you know, standard operations for a season or two, you know, and then just to see where that goes from there, you know, get some momentum here or there by just being there, competing, and being available to take advantage of anything, and they just could not do it. And that's just the really terrible part about it. Yeah,
they just didn't have the data at the end of the day to actually by being at these events. You know, you're missing out on testing, you're missing out on competing, you're missing out on learning. And apparently, I'm not sure if this has been privy or in the public domain, but apparently Dragon Speed, after the Sebring event that year, the 12 hours of Sebring, or the 1,000 kilometers, or whatever to Sebring, they wanted to switch chassis for Le Mans. They wanted to go from the BR1 to the Ginetta, and the ACO barred it because they weren't allowed to change chassis within the season. So can you imagine if Dragon Speed had actually jumped in that Ginetta and put in a good result at Le Mans? Maybe they could have gained enough data, more data, or been given an opportunity to attract a customer, because yet again, come the start of the 2020 or 2019-2020 season, they arrived without a customer.
I don't blame either. So it's, they promised a lot, and I think for that to be, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, for that to be really much of an issue, they would have, you know, basically kind of squandered a lot of stuff. And really, I mean, they made some gaffes here and there and chose not to spend when they should have. But at the end of the day, though, too, I think if there was an issue with marketing, I mean, I feel like that would have been something more that would have come up with it. There either wasn't the market for what they wanted to do, or there wasn't, they didn't showcase that enough, or they didn't, just take a step back that they needed to. Because I don't see where it necessarily went wrong. I see where everything outside of the car itself, was just not handled correctly for so long that eventually, the wells are going to start running dry, which they did.
Exactly right. Things just never seemed to pick up steam, and the one time it looked like things were picking up steam, and one time things looked like they might be on track, was the preseason Aragon test. Like, I'm not sure if you remember this, Cookie, but there was all of a sudden a lot of buzz around the Ginetta at that preseason Aragon test, the Michelin tire test, or whatever it was. And I know that Graham Goodwin wrote up this massive report on the Ginetta program at that test, and said at the end of it, like, this car outstripped the other prototypes, outstripped the other P1 cars. This is a serious car. And, Graham Goodwin was a consultant on that project, so he might have a biased eye, sure. But you don't just outdo a Rebellion and a BR1 just for no reason. Like, that showed some absolute critical pace in that chassis, and yet they still did not manage to nail down a customer. They still got to the cutoff date for the entry of the 2021 or the 2019-2020 season without a customer. So I don't know how you can get to that point where there's that much buzz and that much hype and that much interest around a program and not nail down a customer. To me, that I think is the biggest failing of the Ginetta program, because we saw that the chassis was capable of doing things. We saw that the car in the right hands had some good pace, particularly when Charlie Robertson were behind the wheel in the early races at Silverstone. But without a competent team running the car, and that's not to say anything about the team that was running the car, because they were literally the people working at Ginetta at the time, but without a race team running and engineering that car, there was no way they were ever going to be competitive. And as much as it pains me to say that, it really does not. Looking back on it, it was never really a serious effort. If they couldn't get a customer, if they weren't going to pay someone to run the cars properly, then it was never going to be a serious effort. And history shows that was the case.
Yeah, but then that means that we need to rewrite how we do, the top flight, racing. Then it just literally becomes OEMs. Yeah, because what's the point of having privateers? There is no reason to have a privateer.
Well, I mean, Rebellion were absolutely capable of being a privateer for however many seasons.
Anymore.
I mean, well, okay, yeah, so yeah, they're not anymore, fine. We got bicollars and
they're the last of the dinosaurs, the last of their species. They died out. Like, who is going to take over for them? Ginetta did offer, while it was not the, like, if Cadillac were to offer, their Cadillac DPI to teams to be like, here, race this. It's a whole lot more sellable for a package for them because they're racing for overall wins, and you also just have a package that's already pre-made for you. Ginetta, on the other hand, I mean, went 70% of the way, I'd say.
Yeah.
And if you actually wanted to do it and spend the money and try to go with that and try to win it with that horse, like, then there you go. But I just feel like there is no competition a direct competition for those privateers to really actually sell themselves on, unless it's a rich guy that just wants to sit there and just compete and be faster than everybody else except the OEMs. Then, I mean, clearly that doesn't exist anymore.
Chris Dyson did it,
and yeah, and he also rode that ship all the way down until the last season for LMS too. And so, but that doesn't exude confidence from me, just from the aspect that, like, it just seems like the age of the privateer is over until we actually have people that are interested and involved in, like, doing top flight, try to go for overall wins, which it feels like we've established the pattern that you have to have money and really good drivers. It's not, and maybe a little bit of luck, but it's basically you got to have pace. Like, you can't really just win it on an X factor that you can come up with randomly for a privateer, and you have to settle for second, essentially.
I like, on one hand, I do think that a privateer racing in an OEM class in non-OEM equipment is always going to struggle. Like, that is just, you do not have the resources as a privateer to throw money at things like you do as an OEM. Like, there's a reason that Porsche
but it's a ginormous amount now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like, oh, well, yeah, well, they're using, steel, so I'll use aluminum. It's like, no, they're using, like, fleets of, like, terabytes of data, tons of, like, software engineers versus my two.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird, if you're smart about it, you're going, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I getting out of this? Like, you almost kind of have to sell yourself a little bit more from this aspect than, like, I'm down for the challenge. You're like, I'm down for the challenge too. Yeah, I'm down for the challenge of, like, seeing how long it takes me to put my hand in a, like, burning fire. But I don't really. That's probably not really a good idea to do it.
Yeah.
So,
like, that's fair. But if you're gonna have ambition, my thinking is, right, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you're gonna have ambition to do something like this, which Lawrence Tomlinson obviously did, like Colin Collars and like Rebellion Racing and like SMP, if you're gonna have ambition to do it properly. Don't just half-ass it every step of the way, and that's what I feel like with the Ginetta program. And we get to what, Fuji? We get to Le Mans, we get to Fuji, we get to Bahrain. Components are failing that really shouldn't fail. Like, when was the last time that a LMP1 car, privateer or otherwise, had a gearbox fail? Those are things that shouldn't really fail. Like, that to me sounds like
it's teething.
Yeah, it's that's something.
They're understandables. But all this is understandable. I don't want to I'm definitely casting dispersion on their inability to make this work. But at the same time, where all the stuff that kind of went on was just okay, well, yeah, that's what would happen if you have only spent this amount of time doing this.
Exactly.
It's well documented that it was still in its very infancy stages with that program.
The teething problems to me are things like the wheel falling off at the pit stop at Silverstone. That's someone who hasn't done a race pit stop making a mistake in a race pit stop. That's a teething issue, sure, but the stuff like components failing when they shouldn't, that's not teething. That's a lack of investment. That's a lack of lack of component maintenance, or whatever you want to call it. That Bahrain race, they had a legitimate shot of winning that race. I mean, Charlie Robertson was qualified in the front row. Yeah, he made a mistake at turn 1, and I'm sure he feels awful about that. But neither car finished the race, and it was for an identical gearbox failure. And you would think that, come Circuit of the Americas, where the success ballast would have been weighted even more in their failure, because they kind of skewed the entire curve at that point by not finishing, that they had the cards stacked in their favor, but they didn't get to the event. They had to take the cars back to England to service them, because they couldn't get the cars over to Texas or to whatever to actually get them serviced in time. And then we never saw them again. And then they were there, I think, at Sebring for the test, and then the next day Sebring was cancelled. And you can say that's bad luck. You can say, the change from Sao Paulo to Circuit of the Americas, that was bad luck. They weren't able to make that adjustment in their time frame. You could say that getting to Sebring on the brow of a global pandemic and having to go back home the next day, you can say that's bad luck. You can say that not having a customer is bad luck. You can say that having no team to run the cars outside of those whose job were to build components for the cars. Because, I mean, you can't do pit stop. You're not going to do pit stop practice on your lunch break, right? You can say that's all bad luck, but at some element, it stops being bad luck and just... So what's this? LMDh always says you make your own luck. I don't quite believe that. There's another saying that I've heard that I can't quite remember where it come from. But the saying that I've heard is, luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. So at Bahrain and at Circuit of the Americas, they had opportunities to potentially take race wins, but their preparation absolutely wasn't there, whether it be because they had failures or because you're not counselling your driver to be civil on the turn 1 of an 8-hour race, or because you haven't built the cars up properly, you haven't serviced them in time. That's a lack of preparation, and they've missed out on those opportunities because of that. And then, come this year, Sebring got cancelled, of course. They didn't run at Spa because they didn't want to quarantine twice. They didn't run at Le Mans, and apparently that was they were on the entry list until 8 days before Le Mans, and then they disappeared. And it was well, I think we had the conversation at that point after Spa. I think it was me and you, or me and Ollie. Do we see the Ginettas again? And honestly, I remember all of us thinking that, we probably wouldn't. And history will show that that was the case.
Yeah, I think this is just more of the same. I mean, I think that's what I think people are. I think if it comes down to it, where people are more, if you're upset about this, it's just kind of this should have been different, or this could have been different, and it just ended up kind of being
it could have been
the
different.
Same way that a lot of these.
It could have been so different. It could have been so different. And to me, it seemed like there was a complete divorce between the performance of the car and the engineering of the car and what the car could do, and who the people who work on the car and the people who were telling us these things and who were promoting it and who were looking for customers. Can you imagine if Ginetta got a single customer? Anders Fjordback was one of the named drivers for this Aragon test. Can you imagine if High Class Racing ran a Ginetta for a season, and it was Fjordback, Anderson, and Magnussen or some other Danish driver or Mark Patterson or whatever. Can you imagine if they had one season where they had a customer actually running the car and and being an actual competitive race team? Like, we could be sitting here talking about the grandfather Ginetta effort that's going on next season as a potential race winner. Like, it feels like to me that, well, I think reflecting back on it, it seemed half-assed or three-quarter-assed at every single step, and you're not gonna compete in the pinnacle of endurance racing, endurance sports cars, if you're not going the whole hog. That's my
totally
thoughts.
Agree.
Yeah. And I'm mad because we had a friggin' sticker on that car, and it was going to race at Le Mans, and I was going to be at Le Mans to watch it with the other heads of those friggin'...
because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of this is because of that?
I mean, a not insignificant amount. I am mostly disappointed in the fact that we didn't have another competent privateer racing that had committed to a full season, but I would have absolutely loved to have been at Le Mans with Ian Chicken and Matt Pigg, who are the leaders of the other two fan groups that were on the as part of the sponsorship for that car, and to have, like, I am not insignificantly annoyed by that.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, and I think the most telling thing about this
anger is valid.
Yeah, thank you. I like that you validate my feelings. And I think the most telling thing about this entire saga that has been the Ginetta P1 project is Lawrence Tomlinson coming out and saying, I think it was at some point this year, I spend my money on things that either make me money or bring me joy. At the moment, the LMP1 project does neither. I think that when I saw that written down, I was like, well, that is never seeing the light of day again.
Yeah, I mean, you would need motivation to do that, and there was no outside motivation coming, and there really hasn't been since, like, a few months into their announcement with it, really.
Yep. So there is the Ginetta saga. We've finally done it. We've finally done a post-mortem, and I honestly never want to talk about it again.
Jeez, that's a little bit.
Well, I after seeing how this particular project has run its course, I have no desire to follow any other Ginetta project. I have no belief. I have no faith. And that's fine. I think. They can have their one-make series. That's fine.
Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. We'll find out.
Anyway, let's talk about some more positive things. So, we'll start that off by starting with something very negative. LMP1 is no more. There is officially no more LMP1 races. There's one grandfathered effort as a privateer for next season, but there is no more LMP1. Cookie, what are some of your greatest highlights from the LMP1 era? Let's talk about some of the best things that have happened in the last 10 years of sports car, the LMP1 era. Share with me your happiest, saddest, most fanatical moments.
The cars went really fast.
And you lucky son of a bitch, were one of the people lucky enough to see them in person. And I am going to be forever jealous of you for that.
In anger too, you might see him like in Legends races. No, you're not. Those things are too complicated for you to even do at all. Like that'll be at Goodwood if you want to go there.
Yeah,
but man,
but you actually got to watch them race. Like, screw you.
Yeah, they're inhuman.
Yeah,
inhuman reactions. If anybody gets that meme. But yeah, it was there. Yeah, I mean, just greatest memories would be like seeing them in person, because again, the acceleration outside on corner exit is just stupid, and also just how ridiculously maneuverable the all-wheel drive systems are with these things, and the hybrid systems, and which allowed for just ridiculous amounts of racing. If there was pavement or if there wasn't, they just went there.
Oh my god, the amount of like passes on the grass that we've seen.
Yeah,
Like I remember
so
one at
many.
Mexico at Spa. It's just crazy.
Couple at Spa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just that it kind of more or less kind of became the world championship again. And I mean, it really just kind of helped sail through that organization and giving it some foundation for that to kind of establish itself, so that we can do this. Have a down year and have a few down years like this and still stick around. So those would probably be it. I mean, honestly, I do love the tech, but it was so out of control, and it's such a glaring like hole in that entire deal of like, whereas a Group C kind of has the same issue a little bit, but I feel like that was more of a like people weren't so crazy dedicated to maximizing performance instantly that you would be today, which for good reason, but still. So yeah, those are my good memories about LMP1.
Nice.
There you go.
We've actually got Lada who's jumped in. Lada, hello, welcome back to Endurance Chat. And he hasn't said anything. Okay, when you fill out your mic, you can jump back in. I'm going to be a bit more like specific because I mean, as far as seeing them in person, you. But like for me, like the LMP1 era is the only era of top level sports car racing I have watched. I saw the battles between Peugeot and Audi. Of course, that was still LMP1. The diesel battles at Le Mans. That was my introduction to Le Mans, the 2008 Le Mans. But the hybrid era, Porsche announcing in 2012 that they were entering the WEC and Le Mans, is what brought me into watching this incredible endurance spectacle. And it brought me into r/WEC and making this podcast and so many other opportunities that I can talk about in length another time, or I'll talk your ear off if I ever see you in person. But the 2014 season with like Porsche still finding their feet, Toyota being very strong, and then that Le Mans, that was incredible. The battles in like Silverstone 2015 where Audi and Porsche were trading the race lead every lap for about 2 or 3 hours on end. You can't talk about LMP1 and not mention the 2016 Le Mans. Like, I'm sorry, Cookie, but that might be one of the most iconic finishes in the event for all the wrong reasons. Like,
up and down, buddy.
Like, that's, yeah. But like, Fuji 2016, remember Fuji 2016, the redemption for Toyota, the closest ever competition finish in WEC history, 0 safety cars, 0 yellow flags for 6 hours, and it came down to a strategy decision at the final pit stop. Like, that to me was the peak of the WEC. That race was 3 manufacturers at the absolute height of their power doing unbelievable things with sports cars in and out of traffic. It's been an incredible period of development, and the cars I've found watching the cars very exciting as well. And yeah, that to me is what I'll remember most from LMP1. Not only the crazy technology and the crazy physics that these cars managed to break, but some of the battles that, like, at the Nürburgring, at Mexico, at Bahrain, the Porsche's championship victory at Bahrain, Mark Webber driving that broken piece of shit home in that last stint, like, it was incredible. So,
man, I mean, the races especially that you were mentioning, I mean, there's even a couple other ones too that were just, I mean, even the the Coda one with the heavy downpour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember. I still have images. Like, I can remember Timo Bernhardt just braking at the end of the long straight and just shooting into the gravel trap like a tractor.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, so there's a ton of different, like, just different weather events that kind of beset a lot of the races too. That really kind of and different, even just the altitude. So like we even had some races that had altitude be more effective for some of the naturally aspirated engines versus the turbo charged engines as well. So just even some of the aspect for that was just fascinating, and the ebb and flow. And really, it was just like, what different factor could you find in almost in any different month of an advantage that one of the manufacturers would find over the other? And
it was
Porsche had it for a lot too.
A technological arms race.
That it was.
Yeah. Lada, have you sorted yourself out?
Yes, I do.
Yes! Welcome back to the show, Lada.
Welcome. Hello, guys. I do agree with you guys. I do believe the 2016 is basically, I'll say, it's the year of LMP in general. But I think it's gone a bit long too. I think the ACO as well as other manufacturers realized that it's going to force somehow and someday. They actually saw it with Nissan actually bowing out. But of course, Nissan is actually somewhat a half-assed project, I do believe. I think manufacturers realized that they couldn't keep up with the technology and as well as all the cost blowing out and budget blowouts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do believe the LMP1, the modern LMP1, like even like according to Wikipedia, it says LMP1 starts off in 1992 as with the rest, but for us, we recognize LMP1H started around like 2012,
2014 was
2014.
the first, yeah.
2014 would be the first year, but yeah. That year was recognized with the diversity of technology, like people trying out basically anything that they can, like Audi with the
flywheel,
the flywheel, the Porsche with the battery, Toyota with the supercapacitors. Like these
those supercapacitors.
Yeah, these supercapacitors. Those three have different approaches, different attempts, different ways of figuring things out. Like it's actual. Like, it says directly to wood. It's a prototype. Like manufacturers don't know what's going on after this. Like, they say, okay, this is our take on how to make the fastest car ever, which may or may not be implemented onto actual cars in the future. And, in the future, we know what's the answer right now. It's full-on battery at this point.
Yeah.
That era will be best known for the diversity of technology, diversity of not in teams in general, but I'll say it's the wild things, basically, the wild technology and stuff like that.
That's a great way of putting it. Thank you for that, Lada. You kind of forget when 2014 started that you had like 3 different engine configurations, 2 different types of fuel, and 3 different hybrid solutions. Like, as an introduction to the sport, as it was for me at that point, learning about all of that and trying to wrap your head around all of that and how it would affect a race was quite a step, but it was certainly matched with some incredible racing. And while I think the technology is certainly a part of the conversation in the LMP1 era, where we've gone from, high capacity engine, like petrol engines, through the diesel low rev torque era into hybrid power. Not only will the technology be talked about, but also the racing, just the pure racing product. In 2016, there was just nothing that came close. Like, you couldn't point to any other series in 2016, besides maybe V8 Supercars for how crazy that finished up. But other than that, it was all about WEC. It was all about LMP1.
The LMP1 ended like unexpectedly, I'll say, because Dieselgate happened.
I hate that it's called Dieselgate. It's such a stupid name.
I know. Same. Like, want to call it Volkswagen Gate at that point. Like, this is
just get rid of the gate. Just call it the diesel emission scandal. The reason Watergate is called Watergate is because that was the name of the hotel. Not every scandal or like controversy needs gate attached to it. You know what a gate is? It's a freaking open. Oh, anyway. It's an open
absolutely. Yes, there's a reg cycle mandate in LMP1 in 2017. Yeah, but I do think that they changed constantly. Like they changed the like, what do you call it? They changed the goalposts like significantly. Yeah. I do remember. I haven't read the LMP1H like regulations earlier, but I do believe that the 2017 is a much more like advanced, high end. Like they'll continue the technology leap on the 2017 regulations, and then after that they were like, okay, yeah, everything's collapsing, everything's tumbling down. Let's cut costs. Let's rein in the costs away.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment as well. We kind of didn't realize what we had until all of a sudden it was gone. So rest in peace, LMP1. You will be remembered fondly, and in maybe 5, 10, 20 years, you will be remembered as the golden era that you absolutely deserve to be. Rolling back onto this year, highlights of 2020, guys. Lada, you can stick around if you want in this one. What was your favorite series to watch during 2020? Your favorite race series to watch? Cookie?
Oh, that's tough.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
It's either LMS or Asian Le Mans series, maybe the SRO.
Asian Le Mans series was pretty good. That went down to a title fight.
Yeah,
Yep.
I probably have to lean Asian Le Mans series just for like all the classes, but I don't know. I feel like that's just giving it to, the first two got disqualified, so you got to give it to third place, the winner, But
Ouch.
I feel like that's. I mean, I don't mean it disrespectfully, but it's definitely not what I was wanting to be my favorite series.
Yeah, fair. Lana, what about you? Favorite series of 2020?
Go a bit biased. I might say the Asian Le Mans because, well, it's the second time I went to an actual race. First race will be like in the 2017 race, I think.
Yeah.
But I might give the award to the Bathurst 12, actually.
Nice, good choice. Bathurst 12 Hour was absolutely awesome. My favorite series coming out of left field, MotoGP. If you guys didn't watch MotoGP this year, you absolutely missed out. That was incredible series, MotoGP. As far as sports cars, IGTC, I guess, mostly on the strength of the Bathurst 12 Hour. Really, I haven't watched enough of any one series to have a fully formed opinion, because, like, I missed an ELMS race, and I missed a, SRO race, and etc., etc. Asian Le Mans series is still a pretty good shout, though. I think that should go down as one of 2020's better series, and simply because of the fact that it actually managed to run its course in an effective way. So that was really, really good.
I'm very surprised that they actually ran it like during all this time.
Right at it was finishing up just as everything was kicking off. Because their last weekend was the same weekend as the Adelaide 500, the V8 Supercars race, and then 2 weeks later, the entirety of Australia was locked down. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. What about favorite race? Favorite race of 2020? Favorite motor race? Anyone want to jump in first? Cookie, Lada?
It's hard to say because right now everything is it's distant. It's so distant. Like the only thing on top of my head I can remember is the Asian Le Mans in the Bend.
Yeah.
I do remember Bathurst. I do remember, well, after this, it's just a blur.
Yeah, that's fair.
I hate to say it, it's such a blur. And then there's a center that's tacked on a virtual Le Mans series, if we haven't talked about it, and Le Mans itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry I missed out Nürburgring and Spa, but it was a dark time, basically.
Yeah, fair. Cookie, any thoughts?
I don't know. Probably Le Mans or Nürburgring 24. Just from
you sound so forlorn. We're meant to be talking about the best parts of 2020.
Because there really wasn't any best parts of it. Well, like what are you supposed to say? The IMSA DPI championship was won by a point. Like, okay, who cares?
Wait, there's a championship
for that. I mean, Toyota won, WEC LMP1. Like, I don't know. Like, there wasn't really anything. Like, I'm like, there is an aspect. Yes, I am definitely looking at other classes for all their stuff. But I'm like, it would be really nice to have some very close overall battles. Or at least just like have something a little bit more memorable. Even from the even the range shortened Rolex 24 of a couple years ago that where Fernando won it. But even that at the end was still a little bit close. Like they were still kind of like fighting for the win or something. There was just something on the line. It was something tense, and it's just kind of been like, yeah, there's definitely been aspects of that throughout some of these races this year. But the oomph doesn't feel like that in a lot of the two biggest series.
That's
so
fair.
It's a little bit. It's just so hard to kind of get amped of it. And then again, like the Nürburgring 24, usually very, very, very good. I mean, it's too good, I would almost say, sometimes the last few years. And so this year was kind of a little bit more decided.
It got friggin' fogged out for like 20 hours or something mental.
Right, and then yeah, exactly, and that just kind of killed a lot of that. And the Spa 24, that was okay. It wasn't crazy memorable. There was definitely some accidents, but
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I think the Porsche winning with a broken gearbox, that was pretty, like, as far as most absurd moments of the year.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be the Bathurst 12 hour. I mean, I absolutely have an incredible bias on that event because I was working there as media for Daily Sports Car, and I got to see an entirely new side of that event. But the tension throughout that race, ramping up to Bentley's victory, and then 5 seconds later, deluge of rain. Like, that was just mental. So I gotta say Bathurst 12 hour. I do actually want to shout out to the Virtual Le Mans for all its gimmicks and all its problems. That the climax of that race was up there with some of the closest WEC finishes, I think.
Yeah, that's great. But to be fair, even though people talked high that the sim racing thing is up and up, like I do agree with that. It's just the platform doesn't. I don't think it's suited for something like this right now.
It certainly showed the positives of a platform like sim racing and also the limitations.
Yeah, I do agree. Have we talked about the virtual Le Mans at all?
Yeah, on Endurance Chat, yeah, we did. We talked about it. I think Ollie and I had a very candid discussion. We didn't really talk about the result, but we talked about the races as a whole earlier on the year. Favorite battle, guys? Favorite battle of the year? There's a few that I can think of. Anything that jumps out to you that you want to make mention of your favorite on-track battle of the year or off-track battle of the year? I mean, the battle of entries versus coronavirus is still a battle, I guess. From the chat, we've got pre-COVID Bathurst ones. Yes, Bathurst, of course. I think GT3 cars versus the Walls at Bathurst. That was a great battle. The Walls won more often than not, if you remember. Anyone want to jump in?
Blank, very blank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Righto. I think. Well, I guess I'll just share some of my favorite battles then, if no one's gonna jump in.
Please.
Let me have a think about it.
Yeah. So Rebellion versus Bicolors in the virtual Le Mans. Not in the real Le Mans because that was always going to go one way. The virtual Le Mans, I think that was actually really, really good. The G Drive versus Carlin battle in Asian Le Mans series, very, very good. Particularly, actually, Eurasia, the race, the New Zealand clad car versus the G Drive car at the Bend, I think, where they were basically ebbing and flowing in traffic, and it was like 3 or 4 stints where they were nose to tail. That was particularly good. That one jumps out at me. James Allen in the Graf racing car versus the entire P2 field at Le Mans. No one expected him to do that well in the first stint at Le Mans. That was ridiculous. I got to pay that one for him. And yeah, we've got to mention the chat. Sorry, I saw it earlier. AF Corsa versus Aston Martin at Le Mans. That was a really, really good one as well. So there's a few there, definitely. Oh, and from Petit Le Mans, the Acura versus the Whelen Cadillac, where they bumped and barged for an hour straight and then both took each other out in the last lap. That one's, I think that's NASCAR in a sports car at that point.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think of any other ones like IMSA related that were good.
Just because IMSA is a trash series. What? I'm sorry.
Maybe at Petit. There might have been one at Petit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ending at Petit, that was pretty kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think what's clear from this conversation is that because there was so much nothing and then just so much racing all at once, it's just everything blurs together. I'm not sure about you, but things are blurring together in my mind.
Well, yeah, especially when there was a 10-hour race and a 6-hour race held the same track.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to remember which ones are which without thinking that they're the other one. So.
Yeah, exactly. we'll move on from that. Favorite moments, and there were some high quality moments this year. Favorite moments of 2020. What do you reckon?
Oh,
I reckon you getting on stream at Daytona, waving your hat around like a lunatic. That's one of my favorite moments.
that is true. I was waving my hat around like a lunatic. I hope people enjoyed my lunacy on camera.
I always enjoy your lunacy, especially on camera. If you know what I'm...
No, I don't. No, please, dear God, no. Yeah, no. There are just a lot of different. There's obviously just to see some of the series racing at all, and see just the amount of competitors still able to show up, and for it not to be as impactful in terms of positive testing and all that stuff that being, which is really good, positive. So those are good moments.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for feel good stories. So anytime you can kind of do that, point to, win or a podium, something like that for somebody who hasn't done it before, those are probably going to be my feel good moments. So there's a few at Le Mans too. So yeah, those are probably nothing really crazy to write home about that I'm really, really, really happy for. I mean, United Autosports, I feel like they deserve all the accolades that that they have. And yeah, it was domination, but I feel like still endurance racing, so you still have to put all the pieces together. So that at least needs to be admired. So
yeah. What about you, Lada? Any favorite moments? Personal favorite moments? Professional favorite moments?
Personal favorite moments. Let me think about this. I think my favorite moment of this year will be in Asia Le Mans event. Like
nice.
we all met up.
That was pretty good, yeah.
That was, yeah.
Gigi's tour of the paddock, that was really, really cool.
Yep, and I first time saw you as a journalist.
Oh yeah, that weekend for me was an absolute whirlwind. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I had no idea what was going on, and honestly, Bathurst went way better. Bathurst went so much better. But
yeah, I do believe that year, like this race in particular, stands out for me because, like, previously when I tried to make a community-based like CSS update, community posts, everything, we just often ask ourselves, like, when will the payout? Like this race in particular kind of pays out. There's a picture that we posted with all of us together, I guess. Like that's when I realized, like, yeah, that's everything starting to pay off, I guess.
Yeah, that felt pretty good. Having lunch together or dinner together afterwards.
Yeah.
With usernames, I was so used to finally seeing them in person. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for me, Dubai underwater, that was pretty nuts.
Oh yeah, right. Forgot. Yeah, that's the thing.
That was this year.
That was hilarious.
That was incredible. I can't believe that happened. The kangaroos at the 12 hour, that was also this year. That was also amazing. The kangaroo safety car. The drone that fell on track at Palanga. Remember? Did you guys see that? Did you guys watch the Palanga 1,006 kilometers? That was dumb. That was just so dumb.
No, I should have done.
That was such a meme race. I love it. I think having Le Mans in here, the Discord server, having it work so well, that was just such a highlight for me to actually just have things work and have the community respond properly. That was incredible. And some of the photos from the Kyalami 9 hours, like last week or 2 weeks ago, where it was just like beautiful sun for 8 hours and then a flood, like that was just wild. And things like the virtual Le Mans, some of the moments from that were pretty great. I think when they had one of the red flags, they had an interview with Jackie Stewart, just randomly, it was like, okay, we need to fill some time, and it was just stuff like that was really sort of sticks out. So I think they were my favorite. Those are the things I'll remember about 2020. But we have plenty of other good stuff to look ahead to now, because the last few weeks we've been inundated with good news. It's been good news. So firstly, LMH next year, Toyota's new car has been released. It's like there has been undisguised photos of it testing out at I can't remember what the circuit was, Paul Ricard or something. Anyway, Aragon, thank you in the chat. Aragon, we have pictures of the LMH cars that are going to be coming up next year. We've got a pretty solid calendar with I think Fuji, Bahrain returning. Monza, we're going to Monza as well, so that'll be a nice return to some endurance racing heartland. And then at least 2 privateers next year with Glickenhaus and Bicolors. What do we expect from LMH next year?
Nothing.
Oh, really? Come on.
What?
You gotta be a little excited.
What?
No, that's the attitude you should have. I mean, Toyota should win most everything. Glickenhaus, I am hoping is able to have at least a full season with no issues. That car has no major teething issues. I expect the LMP1s to be the 2 LMP1s to pretty much be pretty heavily restricted in terms of their pace. So, I mean, if Toyota do break, we might see Rebellion win or Glickenhaus, but that would probably be the only kind of aspect for that for this year. It's more or less just like it's the first year of a lot of new cars, so expect reliability issues and mostly to not befall Toyota, or at least to fall Toyota's way, most likely. So,
Yeah.
I feel like people will be more frustrated with this season coming up than anything else, just from them being like, oh, well, this is your chance, and Toyota still won and everything. It's like, well, we'll see.
Yeah, fair.
That's kind of where I'm saying it, because I feel like if we had Peugeot immediately out the gate, I feel like that'd be different, but we don't. So you guys it's kind of another season LMP1, but hey, Toyota could break this time.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah, fair. I think the other one that we're referring to, someone's asking in the chat, that's the Alpine, the grandfathered Alpine, which they're going to be using the Rebellion's old cars. So remember, we're talking about a car that is aiming for a 3:30 average lap time at Le Mans in race stint, which is probably going to be 3:28 in reality. So it'll be an interesting season. I wonder how much the LMP2s are going to be affected. That's the thing that I'm really thinking about. But on the other hand, like when Peugeot come in 2022, and if they keep that 905 reference in the rear wing, I'm just going to go absolutely nutty for it. That's going to be the start of a titanic battle in the LMH category.
I see. But here's a question I wanted to place to you guys. Do you think with the LMDh release, do you think LMP2 would have a grid at all?
Not in IMSA. Not in IMSA.
Not in IMSA.
I don't see how you can fit LMDh, P2, P3, GTLM, if that still exists, and GTD on the same grid at the same time in IMSA. I think any team that is going to be worth anything in P2 in IMSA is either going to find its way into running an LMDh car for a manufacturer or just slot into P3.
I see.
Because I would hate to see the LMP2 class be eroded because LMDh is the thing.
I do think it will happen. I sadly would say, like,
I can't see it disappearing from the ELMS and the Asian 1 series. The grids are too strong, in my opinion. The grids are too strong.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, from what I'm thinking right now, I like if people realize that if you have a dependent LMP2 chassis, like proven basically, it's been like many years right now. And then you pair it up with a power plant that is basically, you can choose whatever you want. Well, nearly choose whatever you want. And you think of a combination, and then people are like, okay, this is the best combination, which is dependable, won't break, and at least competitive. Yeah?
You still have to have the manufacturer offer it to customers, though.
That's true. That's true. I do believe that LMDh will be I'll say if one of these two groups pulls off a customer, like an actual genuine customer, customer based team comes out, even one of them, that team would be the dominant team in this whole entire era.
Well, I mean, that's
what I believe. That's
unsurprising because that's basically, measuring up the GTLM model versus the GT3 model. I think that's actually not a bad analogy for LMH versus LMDh. You have basically bespoke endurance racing machinery on one side, which is, very, very limited and effectively prototypes. They're still prototypes, I think, the LMH cars. Then on the other hand, you have a more accessible base chassis and manufacturers looking to make money off of it. So I think I wouldn't surprise me to see more more of a GT3 like style customer base out of LMDh, just on a smaller scale. But speaking of LMDh, great news coming in the last 2 weeks. Audi, to what I understand, is a 2-car commitment for the WEC in an LMDh car, and Porsche, WEC and IMSA in an LMDh car. Holy shit dicks, guys. The whole band's back together. Everyone's back.
Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town.
Oh, it's great. Cookie, you messaged me as soon as the Porsche news dropped, and we're like, well, here we go again.
It's on. It's going to be another fun show. We'll see. Porsche always have a way of doing stupid shit, so we'll find out what they're going to do this time with LMDh.
And the roles have completely changed as well. Like, Porsche actually think of using a V8, while
that's what they
Audi
announced in the daily sports car. That was in the daily sports car release. They're going to use the engine from the Cayenne, is what's been saying. The Cayenne, the SUV.
Yeah. Because I often, like, on top of my head, I always think that the Porsche is actually the low power to weight ratio sort of team, while Audi is actually the power versus efficiency sort of team. But oh well.
Yeah, fair. It's gonna be very interesting. That's all coming into a head in 2023, of course. But I'm so conflicted because I don't believe in LMDh as a platform. I don't want to like it. I don't think it's not the type of machinery that I want to watch. I'd rather watch LMH cars because I am interested in the technology behind them. But Porsche going to LMDh,
it's a holding pattern. Let me just say it straight up. Like, because of what happened, the emission scandal. Yeah. Okay, just for you. Just because of the emission scandal. And this year, financial crisis pending. I think LMDh is a holding pattern for the whole entire racing, sports car racing, prototype racing. Even then, like, LMH is on paper is actually much more expensive than LMDh. So, but LMH also have a high chance of winning because, of course, much more bespoke engine, much more bespoke chassis, bespoke basically everything. You have more control.
But you have more freedom, rather.
More freedom. But yeah, LMDh, I do believe, is to manufacturers is much more like secure, like a much more secure base. Like, to the accountants, I'll like say, okay, how much do you spend? I was like, oh, we spend that much, like a few $1 million. That's our budget. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
but LMDh, it's unpredictable. You'll be like, okay, how much do you spend? I was like, oh, maybe like a few $10 million around, and then might be blooming up because of R&D, some teething issues, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's far less likely to spiral.
Exactly.
But Cookie, we have the prospect here of 2023 having Peugeot versus Toyota versus Audi versus Porsche, which between them have taken something like 34 of the last 40 Le Mans 24 hours victories. How enticing is that, looking 2 or 3 years into the future?
It'd be more enticing if it was 6-7 years in the future. But no, it's that's really what it counts for me. But I think honestly, you have the framework for like every team that has essentially stuck it out over the last 40 years is either coming back or still has to prove themselves. And I feel like if you're ever going to have a time where you're going to have 4 OEMs that have a legit shot of winning it and will want to show up to beat the other 3, it's now, and it's these 4. So
yeah, exactly.
I feel like these would be this is the right recipe you would want to have. 4-way battles at Le Mans. You'd want these 4 manufacturers there. So
and as you said, if you want to be the giant slayer, these are the giants. These are the 4 manufacturers who are, for the past 20, 30, 40 years, have been the stalwarts at Le Mans in terms of victories, in terms of participation. If you want to prove yourself at Le Mans, these are the 4 you have to do it against. So absolutely, it's a budding opportunity for someone else to jump in and shows a fair amount of strength for the event in the future. What about so that's WEC side of things. I really just quickly, because we've been going now for almost 2 hours, want to touch on the Asian Le Mans series for next year, because I think that is inundated with good news. 36 entries for the Asian Le Mans series next year. 36! That's an ELMS grid. 36 entries. And to me, that speaks volumes of the organization and the communication from the Asian Le Mans series, Cyril Teichwallen and those involved in the media there, because they've put together a program that they communicated to competitors and to interested parties every single step of the way. Every time it changed, there was a communication. Every time that there was a thought that it might change, there was a communication. Why can't the rest of the ACO do stuff like this? Why can't the rest of the ACO go, hey, we are thinking of changing this, give us your insights and we will make a change, instead of, what happened with the P2 driver rating thing just after Le Mans, where it was just like, hey, we're thinking about this, and everyone's like, what? So it's just incredible. I'm so looking forward to the 4 races in 3 weeks over in Abu Dhabi. It's gonna be mental.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, the momentum of the series is just kind of keep going up with the car counts, and I think the driver talent and team talent is also just kind of keeps increasing. So it's doing all the right things it needs to do, and I feel like it is using a lot of lessons learned from some of the other series and how not to do or how to do things, and even from a broadcast perspective, fan engagement, just information standpoint. I think they're doing what you kind of need to do in terms of a motorsport series in 2020 now. 2021 is just kind of what they've been doing, and I mean, really, it's like I think it's time to kind of praise them a little bit and give them applause for kind of how they've been able to steer and navigate this, and still really just keep growing the sport in a place where you've seen Formula One and a lot of other different series try to tap that market, or at least just try to make a foothold. And I feel like, if this keeps up, you're doing exactly that in the sports car world, which is kind of where we were thinking in general some of the new, interesting ideas and or companies would be coming from too. So I feel like just in general, them, even if they have the same car count, that would be a success from last year to this year. And just to see what is currently on the docket is insane.
It really is, because it's not just a strength in P2s, which, remember, we're using the fully fledged P217s as the only class now. There is an AM class, but there's 13 or something P3s as well, and the GT group, there are so many GT teams in here that have come over from racing in Europe. I mean, a part of that is the location, Abu Dhabi being as the base, but Rinaldi Racing coming across, Walkenhorst Motorsport coming across, GPX, who have been doing incredible things in GT World Challenge, or the SRO, GT, whatever. They're coming across with a bunch of cars. It's a TF Sport are coming over, Garage 59 with some Aston Martins. It's going to be Herberth Motorsport, Creventic Stalwarts are jumping in as well. There's going to be an incredible quality in the GT field, and it just keeps going from strength to strength, every single time. Thoughts on the calendar, though? 4 races at Abu Dhabi, 2 day to night races, and using an as of yet unnamed number of different circuit configurations. How do we feel about that?
Fascinated by it.
Fascinated?
Why? I don't know what combinations you really have the opportunity of doing if they're not if they're a number. I feel like it's going to be 2 combinations and they're just going to do one day,
Yeah,
both of them at night, both of them at day. So it's going to probably be underwhelming from what I'm thinking of. But hey, if they did 2 or 3 or 4, that'd be kind of cool.
Well, they have the full length. They have the jump off at turn 2 and cut that that end of the track. They have the
you can half it by the front stretch. They go, if you extend that back or it loops back around it, you can connect that with the other grid area and garage area on the far side. So I think you could do that too if you wanted. But
there's where the first straight ends, where they've got the chicane that takes you onto the second straight. You can just cut that off entirely as well. You could run the shorter circuit. You could run the secondary grid and use just basically Sector 3. I don't know why you would want to, because Sector 3 is horrible. But you could do it.
Like right hand or 75-degree turns. It's great.
It's the worst. It's just, and all the corners are off camber as well, so you can't. It's just going to be terrible.
Let's be honest, dude. That's part of the interest of this as well. I mean, cost cutting is going to be a deal.
Yep.
So we're rolled into this. So a lot of the entries are kind of like, hey, you want to spend a little less money and essentially qualify for an entire ACO supported championship. With
do you want to have a chance at racing at Le Mans? Do you want to do 4 races in 3 weeks and have a chance at possibly racing at Le Mans? Like, when you put it like that, that's pretty wild. Yeah, so that's going to be, I think, February and March next year. The very, very end of February, the very beginning of March. If I recall correctly. 5th and 6th of February, 19th and 20th of February. So pretty early on. So which is like a nice replacement for the Bathurst 12 hour, which unfortunately is not going to be run next year. And I do at this point want to make a special shout out to Jackie, Miss Jax, who has finally secured her right to leave this country to go and spectate at / work these events for the media. So I know she's been working very hard to get out of this country, and good riddance. No, I love you, Jax. Anything else we want to say about this unprecedented year before we say goodbye?
I think this year's a very turbulently. It's like that's one word I can say.
Turbulent, unprecedented,
and turbulent. Every single like plans kind of go out the window after many years. But I mean, there's got to be like a new class coming up. I'm actually really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to Glickenhaus. I mean, he blocked me on Twitter. I'm going to mention too.
That's how you know you're a real sports car fan, when Glickenhaus blocks you on Twitter.
Basically, even though I haven't contacted him in any form or any sort of way, he just blocked me.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to the new cars coming up. Finally, we have a proper calendar rather than the super season calendar.
Oh my god!
Finally,
those 2 super seasons were the worst.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, I would say the experiment is okay. It's hard to not schedule, more like look around and stuff. Like it seems to be very distant.
Yeah. What about you? Oh, sorry, Lada.
But yeah, overall 2021, looking forward to it.
Nice. What about you, Cookie? Anything you want to sign off for in 2020?
Farewell, TSO50. You have been something. I wish I had more happy memories of you, but you did win some Le Mans. That was nice. Really looking forward to the future.
You sound so enthused.
Well, yeah.
Cookie, are we keeping you up? Do you have somewhere you need to
be? No, absolutely not. I'm gonna go watch some sports car racing after this.
Nice.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's tough because I would have liked to wave goodbye a little bit more with more gusto. Let's just say that. But no, I think I think I'll reiterate what I said before, that I'm just glad that we had sizable grids to begin with. I mean, I feel like a lot of us, to a certain extent, were thinking that there might be some crazy, potentially bad stuff going on, because we've felt that before with a lot of financial squeezes of global issues in the past. So it's, I think it was more of a relief from this perspective, I guess, from this fan, just to see, there definitely was not peak grids that we had all year for a lot of stuff, but it was a hearty amount of cars, and that at least tells me that there's still, not everybody's tightening their belts, to an extent that we're going to lose anything major here. And that, I think, was I think if you ask people in April or whatever, like how they were feeling about racing and stuff like that, then I feel like there'd be a lot more doom and gloom or potential for it. So yeah. I'm at least grateful for that aspect, that it doesn't look to be as bad yet we thought it could have been. So
yeah. And hopefully we can say the same about the world at some point during next year. And on that note, I want to just say thank you to everyone who once again has been a part of this project of Endurance Chat. We've somehow through this year managed to do a lot of cool stuff, including I got to interview Johnny Palmer at Le Mans, not at Le Mans, at Bathurst, and having Graham Goodwin on for another interview, and the stuff that we were doing during the first shutdown period. That was all very much community driven, and I want to thank you guys, the listeners, the community that really drives the force behind not only this project, but behind the discussions that we have on the Discord and on the subreddit, and the entire wider sports car community. It's certainly been a big part of getting through this year, and hopefully there are greener pastures in the years to come. And I do want to make a massive shout out to you, Austin, for coming along on this ride with me, and you, Lada, for doing all the graphics and being a part of this podcast as well, and being a part of the subreddit as well. And then particularly to Kiwi Chris for running the game show that we did, and that was a lot of fun. We should do that definitely again. And to everyone who has come along on this journey with us, your patronage is extremely appreciated, and it certainly wouldn't be the same without this going on. My life certainly would be very, very different without all of these things that you guys give me the capacity to do. So on that note, we will sign off for 2020. Have a merry and safe Christmas, or whatever celebration is appropriate for your denomination. Have a...
Nailed it.
Thank you. For those over in the northern hemisphere, have a nice chilly, a nice warm day by the fire or whatever. And for those in the southern hemisphere, enjoy your day out in the sunshine. I have been Michael Zalavari, signing off for 2020. Peace out!
Hello. Man, dude, stop being so edgy. We haven't even started this thing yet.
Don't you know me, Cookie? I'm like a circle. All edge and no point.
Oh, god damn it. I'll give you a round of applause. Circulating my applause around the microphone.
Thank you.
All right.